Right now, a bird in your neighborhood is looking at your face, and its brain is firing the exact same neurons yours do when you recognize a family member. Just sit with that for a second. It's not some generic "something is nearby" alert. It's not a predator flag. The same specific neural sequence that fires in your brain when you see your mom's face across a crowded room, that exact same process, mirrored almost perfectly, is happening inside a skull the size of a walnut, and it's aimed right at you. Honestly, you probably had no idea. You've walked past them 1,000 times. On the power lines, on the fence post, perched on the edge of the grocery store awning while you're loading bags into your car. You glance up, they glance back, and then you just move on. You think nothing of it. But here's the strange part. They don't move on. Long after you've disappeared around the corner, after you've driven off, after the whole moment is completely over for you, the data has already been filed away. Your face, your gait, the way you hold your body when you're relaxed versus when you're in a hurry, it's all logged, and it stays logged. The question isn't even whether this is happening anymore. Researchers have confirmed it over and over across all kinds of different species. The real question, the one that should actually unsettle you a little bit, is just how deep this whole system goes. See, there's this behavior you've almost certainly seen before and probably just dismissed. A bird tilts its head at you, that sharp, almost mechanical angle, one eye fixed on your face like it's trying to solve a puzzle. You probably thought it was cute, maybe a little odd, and then you moved on. But here's what was actually happening in that exact moment. A bird's eyes are positioned on the sides of its head, which means looking straight on is actually its weakest angle. So when it tilts its head like that, it's rotating its eye to force your image into a very specific region of its retina called the fovea. That's the zone of highest visual resolution. It's not tilting its head out of curiosity. It's optimizing the scan. Right then, your facial geometry, the distance between your eyes, the width of your jaw, the specific shape of the bridge of your nose is being processed at maximum resolution, not passively either, deliberately. That little head tilt is the literal equivalent of a camera adjusting its focus right before taking a biometric photograph. You've been scanned, probably multiple times by birds you don't even remember seeing. And this is where it gets interesting, because the tilt is really just the input. What happens next, inside that tiny walnut-sized brain, is the part that completely shatters the whole bird brain stereotype. Birds have this neural structure called the hyperstriatum. For the longest time, researchers just assumed that because birds don't have a neocortex, the layered outer brain structure we mammals use for complex thinking, they couldn't possibly process faces the way we do. But that assumption was completely wrong. What the hyperstriatum does, functionally, maps almost exactly onto what our own fusiform face area does. And that part of our brain has one primary job. It recognizes faces, not objects, not predators. Faces, individual, specific human faces. Neuroimaging studies have actually shown that when birds encounter a familiar human, this specific region activates totally differently than when they see a stranger. Their brain fires differently for you than it does for someone it's never seen before. There is, inside that bird's skull, a dedicated filing system just for human faces. It's completely separate from how it processes predators, and separate from how it processes food or even other birds. It's a specific cognitive drawer, built entirely for us. Think about what that actually means. Over thousands of years of living right alongside us, some bird species didn't just adapt their nesting habits or where they find food. They literally built new brain architecture around us. We actually shaped their neurology. But it doesn't stop at recognition. That's really only the beginning of what that scan is actually building. Here's how the whole visual triage works once your face is officially in their system. See, birds aren't looking at your hair. Hair changes, right? Hats change, clothing changes. Researchers have actually tested this out. They dressed up in different outfits, wore masks, completely altered their appearance. And what they found was that birds are remarkably good at seeing right through those surface-level changes. They might get thrown off for a second, but then their brain recalibrates. What they're actually locking onto is structural. It's the geometry of your face, the proportions that don't change just because you put on a different coat, and along with that, they're tracking your movement signature. That means the specific rhythm of how you walk, the way you carry your weight, the tiny patterns in your stride. To them, it's as individual as a fingerprint. So when you changed your hair, or when you switched from that blue jacket to a black one, the crow that's been watching you for 3 seasons didn't lose your file. It just cross-referenced the face underneath and confirmed the match. You thought you were unrecognizable. You weren't even close. And here's where it stops being just a fascinating fact and starts getting genuinely personal. Their brain doesn't just store your face as a neutral image. It stores your face with a value score attached to it. When a bird's brain logs your face, it simultaneously tags you with an emotional classification: safe, dangerous, neutral. And these aren't just abstract categories. They link up to actual neurochemical states. If you've ever fed birds, if you've moved slowly and quietly near a nest, or if you've simply never given them a reason to fear you, the moment you walk outside, a cluster of dopamine pathways activates in their brain. They register your presence the exact same way they register a known food source. Something good is attached to this face. But the opposite is also true. If you've ever shooed a bird away, walked a little too close to a nest, or made a sudden movement that looked threatening even just once, even years ago, the part of their brain that acts like an amygdala keeps that association alive, and it stays active. It's not just a vague general wariness either. It is a targeted response, calibrated specifically to your face, that's been running quietly in the background every single time you stepped outside since. Maybe you've noticed a specific bird that always seems to fly away the second you show up, while staying perfectly calm around your neighbors. You probably thought it was just random, but it wasn't random at all. It was a judgment. And that judgment has a whole history behind it that you can't fully see. But it doesn't even stop there. And this is the part that changes the scale of everything. When a bird's brain flags your face as a threat, it doesn't keep that information to itself. That danger response translates into a specific vocal alarm. It's a call that literally carries information about you, your location, and the kind of threat you pose. And the other birds that hear that call don't even need to see you to respond to it. Their brain chemistry shifts. Their alertness levels spike. The threat is logged. And then it's passed on. Parent birds that connect your face with danger communicate it to their offspring, behaviorally, vocally, through learned alarm responses. The young birds develop a deep wariness toward your face before they've ever even encountered you themselves. Your image is basically uploaded into a local, multi-generational network. It runs continuously. It doesn't reset when summer ends, and it definitely doesn't forget just because you stop paying attention. There are people walking around today who have a reputation among the birds in their neighborhood that stretches back way further than they'd ever expect, a reputation they didn't even know they were building. One single interaction, one moment where you looked like a threat, quietly downloaded and passed through generations of birds. The file on you didn't start this year. And this changes everything about how you read the space around you. Because when you walk to your car in the morning, you aren't walking through an empty neighborhood. You're actually walking through a crowded room where almost everyone already knows your name, your history, your patterns, even your score. You know that bird that doesn't fly away when you get close? That's not boldness. That's familiarity. That is a brain that has already processed you, assigned you a value, and decided you just don't require an exit. But the one that leaves the split second it sees you from 40 feet away? That's a brain that made a completely different decision. One you probably helped write in a moment you've long forgotten. See, they haven't just adapted to nature. They've adapted to you. Specifically, personally, by name, or whatever internal label their neurology uses instead of one. Every single time you step outside, you are stepping into a courtroom of tiny minds that have already deliberated. Honestly, the verdict was in before you even opened the door. And maybe that sits a little strangely. Maybe it feels like a lot to carry this idea that your history with the wild world has been accumulating quietly, invisibly, without your input or you even realizing it. The idea that the birds in your yard actually have a more complete record of your outdoor behavior than you do. But here's the other side of it. It also means you've never been truly invisible out there. It means the backyard, the street, the trees, none of it was ever indifferent to you. There are minds in those spaces that have been paying attention, building an understanding and forming a relationship with you on terms you didn't set, but that are genuinely yours. The next time a bird tilts its head and holds that fixed, deliberate gaze right on your face, it's opening your file. What do you think it says? Leave it in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where a bird really seemed to recognize you or react to you differently than it did to everyone else around you? I really want to hear about it, because those stories are worth decoding.